What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of the Excellent Podcast. I'm just giving you guys a quick note on this particular episode. Let's hope that I don't keep continuing notes like these. But there's a little bit of a weird audio issue at the 44-minute and 5-second mark, as well as the 1 hour and 38-minute mark. It's really weird. It's like something that happens to Trent's voice. Trent is the guest today for this episode, and I don't know what was going on, but the audio issue makes him sound like a robot, and then it like fades out eventually. So just that note, feel free to skip past that. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this week's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Excellent Podcast. I'm your cinematic host, STEFON WHITAKER, the head honcho at SW Films. And today we have a very special guest. We have a person who is one of the only people who I knew when I was living back in Angola, Indiana, who was doing video as well as me. And that was awesome. And he's done a lot of amazing stuff as far as just curating history for Angola and Steuben County and just really giving a lot of feels and vibes to people that a lot of people may not really understand. And I've finally brought him on the podcast to talk to him and have a conversation about all the amazing stuff that he's done. Mr. Trent Lewis. Don't let me tell it. Speak to your excellence, Trent. How are you doing first and foremost on this beautiful, what's today? We're recording this on a Thursday. How are you doing on this Thursday?
Hey, thanks for having me on. Great to be here. I'm doing excellent. It's September. It's time for fall, time for the weather to cool down. So
oh yeah, absolutely. Well, at least for you in Indiana, and here in California. Yeah. For me in California, I think it's cool a little bit today. Today, I think it's only going to be a high of like 70 or something, but it's been hotter in Indiana than it has been over here most of the time.
Really,
and more humid. Yeah, no, it's been way worse when it comes to the heat over there. I've been there. I was there recently, and the heat was absolutely one of the worst things I've ever had to fucking deal with in Indiana for a while.
Okay, we can cuss then, all right? We can cuss on your podcast.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, 1000%. But yeah, no, it was so hot in Indiana, and here it's not as bad. Here it's kind of decent, unless you go to like LA or if you go to like San Jose, then you're starting to talk about a little bit more heat. But yeah, man, speak to your excellence, Trent. Speak to all the amazing stuff you do. Kind of briefly introduce yourself to everyone who's listening and watching on the podcast.
Well, like Stefan said, I'm Trent, and I grew up in Angola. Actually, my family had a farm that I kind of grew up on. Here, can I start over there?
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah. I'll figure out how to say that. Well, thanks, Stefan. I'm Trent, like he said, and I grew up in Indiana. And I grew up around cornfields. Really, my whole family had farming area that we grew up on. We were literally surrounded by cornfields. And I went to a small high school called Prairie Heights. And how I got into video was they had a TV class that would broadcast through the whole class. And we thought it was a huge deal back then. Like this was the big deal if you could read announcements over.
Right.
Yeah. So there was a big box TV in every room in the corner. So the seniors would always get up there and they would read the announcements. But I didn't really take the class till my senior year, and we were doing music videos, and we got to edit all these different things. It was really fun. So that's how I got into editing and video. And my cousin, his name was Gordon Graywell. He was a mentor of mine. I worked on his farm when I was little. I used to tassel corn and bale hay and bale straw. And he was a coach for many years at Prairie Heights, but he was also a guidance counselor then.
Nice.
And he said, what do you want to do with your life? So I said, well, I think I want to do something with video or I like doing video. And then back in the 90s, there was really one avenue for that. And you had to be in broadcasting, you had to be in TV. So he said, well, here's some colleges that you might be interested in for video production and broadcasting. So I looked at some colleges and I ended up going to Vincennes University, and they had a 2-year program for broadcasting, which I got my degree in, and in sales as well. And in the late 90s, I got my first job. My first job in television was you're the lowest person on the totem pole. So
yeah,
that job is
a production assistant, basically.
No, well, it's even lower than that. A PA is low. It's called master control operator. What a master control operator does is watches the screen, watches the TV, and when the commercials start running, you manually put the brakes in. That's your job.
Okay. More technical.
Yeah, not much to it because we had a machine with a bunch of tapes that did all the work.
Yeah.
You press play. It's all pre-ran. Like, all the thing we had to do is barcode the ads and stuff. So that was my first job, and I was trying to get in to be a PA there, but they were so small back then. It was Fox 55, by the way. My first job, and they had I don't know if you remember this. They had a kid show called Happy's Place that was on. I don't know. You might be too young for that. Do you remember that?
Kids Place. What year did
Happy's
that run?
Place.
Or Happy's Place? What year did that run?
That started in the 80s, and they quit running it in probably 2000.
Yeah, probably. I'm probably too young for that, most likely.
But that was the only original show they did there that was local. They didn't have news, so there was Happy's Place, and the last year I was there, that they quit doing that. So that had like a 17-year run.
Oh, okay.
I actually still have a following on Facebook. So, but the original, there was like 4 or 5 different. It's called Happy the Hobo.
Yeah.
But he would interview the kids. Basically, the kids walk in line, he'd interview them. So
that's interesting. That kind of sounds like some of those really, like, I'd have to check it out, but there's usually those old PBS like kid shows that would come out, and they're very like, they have this really happy-go-lucky character in the story that's really one of the creepiest damn things you've ever seen. You know, I don't know why I think of that.
Yeah, back in the old days, there's someone called Bozo the Clown. I don't know if you heard of that.
Yeah, I remember Bozo.
It's kind of like it was a shoot off of that. So everybody had a clown. That, and clowns are creepy. Now they're in horror stories and horror movies.
Right.
But back then, clowns are innocent and fun.
Right. Until John Wayne Gacy popped up, until the serial killer John Wayne Gacy popped up, then I think that's when people realized clowns and Pennywise. Once they
when it came out, when that book came out. Anyway, so that's all. I realized that place was going nowhere. They had, they basically had, they were going to have news. The Happy's Place thing, there's no production to do. Basically, they were cutting promos off Fox. So Fox would bring in their promos, and all you do was cut it out and clip it. I mean, anybody could do that.
Right.
So I left there and I started at channel 33, same job, but it was third shift, which was worse. I don't know if you ever worked third shift, but it's awful.
It's terrible. I mean, let's say that sometimes on these film shoots I've worked, sometimes they could be considered third shift, but third shift in terms of 9 to 5 type stuff in factories or stuff like that is, yes, I've heard that's very awful. I've never had that experience.
Oh yeah, especially
it's awful. Yeah.
In a TV station by yourself, no one's there. And the room is like 60 degrees and you got a sweatshirt and you have to watch TV. So a lot of times you're not on.
Yeah, that has to be awful. I third shift I heard is not fun, but I've heard the conversation that second shift could be deemed worse, but
yeah, I guess it depends, where you are in your life, but yeah, I actually got fired there.
Oh wow.
And it wasn't, I think I called in sick once, and after that they let me go. and then they got bought out by 21 right after that. So
wow. Okay. Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
but I really didn't learn anything, and it didn't feel like I was going anywhere. So I started doing a cable access show on Fort Wayne, because I live in Fort Wayne now, but when I moved to Fort Wayne to try this broadcasting career, I already worked at 2 of the 5 stations already.
Yep.
So I started doing this public access show. I mean, it was very bad. It was poorly produced, but at least I was doing something. I thought it was funny. Like I was doing kind of the edgy comedy then, which wasn't very funny. But back then I thought it was, and me and my friends were, and at least I was doing something with it. Mm-hmm. And I got to meet there's a whole group of access people that you've never seen. They do these wrestling shows, and it's crazy. Like it was like pre-YouTube is what people used to do. Wow. It'd be all these weird kind of shows, weird people doing these different kinds of things. And they have a slot on public access because it was free. You could all the equipment's free. You could rent. You don't have to rent. You could just book out a editing bay and edit. So,
wow, that's awesome, man. That's great. I think there's actually a person I've worked with. Shout out to Jeff Landis, who's out of Fort Wayne. I've worked with him a few times, and he had an interview show that he had on public access TV, and he would interview. Yeah, if you look him up on Facebook, most people he's definitely a pretty well-known person. He's been in a music video I directed and shot one time. Yeah. But yeah, he runs an interview. I forget what his interview segment was, but I remember I got interviewed by him 2 different times, I believe, and then he's interviewed people like certain people in the WWE realm. He's kind of done stuff like that, so that's why it kind of reminds me of him. But yeah, I've seen a little bit of the public access world a little bit as far as some of the studios. Like I know the library in Fort Wayne has like a whole studio. Exactly, yeah, and that's always kind of cool to see. I think that's like a cool opportunity for a lot of people, especially nowadays, because that gives them access to that kind of world,
Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah, you got to think back then. Nobody had cameras on their phones or cameras anywhere. You just you'd have to have some kind of money or something. So it was an interesting way to, get a hold of a camera and try something.
Right. Yeah. It's wild to think about. Like cameras back then felt like a luxury item,
Yeah. And they were big and bulky. You had to hold them on your shoulder. You got a tape loader on it. I mean,
wild. Something else. Well, I think you kind of answered my first part of it as far as like what is it that you do professionally and stuff like that. And it's great that you talked about your background with broadcasting and kind of getting into that world, because now that you brought up Fox 55 and then got bought out by 21, which I believe is still is that the local news, still one of the local news stations?
Yeah, Channel 33 and 21 merged in the early 2000s, late 90s, I think. So yeah, they're still owned by the same company, which was bought out again by another company recently. So yeah,
that's great. And then of course there's Wayne 15, which they've always been around. Yeah, Wayne is, I think, one of the more prominent ones, I guess, when it comes to Angola, Fort Wayne, just that whole Northeast Indiana kind of area. But with all of that, then with how you started doing broadcasts and how all that built into it, and I don't know if you had finished your story there, but
yeah, I was about to wrap it up. But if I could, I ended up at PBS. That's where I was headed for this. Yeah. So PBS, I became I started as a master control operator, but after 4 or 5 years, I finally got to be a PA. So that's what I really wanted to do. So I got to work on sets. I got to set up cameras, be in documentaries and help out. So basically that's where my journey I really feel started. That the other stuff was just introductory. I didn't really learn much other than pushing buttons. But at PBS, I really learned from people that were actually, producing, directing, how a live show works, all that stuff. That's where you kind of, that's where I really learned how to produce a documentary. I think we did about 5 or 6 there when I was at PBS. Yeah. So all the research that goes involved in that, all the writing, all the interviews you have to do, and then taking all those interviews, script them all out, write them all out, form them into a huge, it's just like, and people don't understand what goes into documentaries, but I was really impressed.
Yeah.
So I hit 30 and PBS doesn't pay very well. And I just recently got married and ended up moving back to Angola. So this is kind of where I decided to go on my own. So I worked at PBS for 5 years. There was nothing in Angola at the time. Nobody was doing video. There was a place in Auburn that was doing it. And I was working in this place in Coldwater that did public access and leased access on the cable. And I was like, well, heck, I could do that in Angola.
Right.
So I called some people, and basically they gave me access right over by Lake James. There's a little Mediacom little box there that they gave me a VCR and DVD player.
Yeah.
So that was in 2004. And then in 2005, I launched 101 Lakes Network, Channel 20. And then that's how it started.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. That is really, really cool just to hear that story, because I remember when I came home from college in 2016, and I think maybe when I was in high school, I graduated high school in 2014. So I believe during that time I may have heard about 101 Lakes Network and all that stuff during that time. But I know for sure when I came back home, it was like one of my goals at the time. I said, okay, I'm gonna work with the company. I'm gonna do a commercial for somebody, and we're gonna get it put on Channel 20 and all that. And then it's funny. It actually popped up on my Facebook recently about a memory popped up saying, how can I get on 101 Lakes Network? And then I think you commented on it and you had said, well, 101 Lakes Network is not around anymore, all this kind of stuff. And you were just switching, but we'll get into that soon. But that's amazing. So that's really cool. Just to hear about specifically with 101 Lakes Network and just how you got into that realm. I guess with that start though, what interested you into really wanting to take that step into video? Like, opposed to everything else that you were doing before then, that you were kind of interested in, doing these different jobs before you got into hopping into the, broadcast world. Like, what really interested you to want to stay and pursue this dream of doing video?
Yeah. Well, I figured I'm in Angola. I might as well do what I like, do what I love. So, just because I'm in a small town, it doesn't mean I can at least try something. And at least build a business off of it. So that was the goal, because if you work for somebody else, they can only pay you so much. So you kind of reach a ceiling, and then once you hit the ceiling, you can't go. So your motivation is what? Is it money or what? But you're stopped at where your employer or whoever you're working for is going to hold you back in a way. Not all, but and for me, I couldn't get a company to do that. Like there's newspaper and radio in that town. That's it. So how about doing video on a channel that people might be curious about what's on it? So one of the first things, I use my PBS thing. The first thing I wanted to do is I want to do a documentary. It's like, I've never done one myself. I've always assisted on them. I was like, I'm just going to do it. So I did, I started writing the history of Pukaki State Park. So that was my first documentary in 2005.
That's great.
So I talked to some people at the Pukaki State Park, excellent guy named Fred Woolley. He was an interpreter there for 30 years. He's probably the smartest guy. If you walk out in nature, anything you want to hear, he can hear and knows what bird it is. So he just points it out. Oh, that's a red-winged blackbird.
Crazy. That's crazy.
He knows the whole history of the park. So, and he's a great storyteller. I was like, you know what, you're a perfect narrator for a documentary I want to do. And he goes, yeah, you know what? I got all this 1930s footage of Pukaki State Park. I was like, you do? Like, yeah, it's on it's on videotape. I was like, sweet, and I need to get a hold of that. And he has an hour worth of old footage from the 1930s of the Waukegan State Park in Potawatomi Inn. When I first put the excuse me, they first put the slide up, which was done in the 1930s during the Great Depression. They built that slide. So, and there's footage of it when it was just at infancy. So anyway, that took about 3 months, and that's what I launched the channel with. I thought, what a perfect way. If someone
that's
wants
a great way to start it. That's a great way to start it. For the people who are listening and watching who don't know what Waukegan State Park is. So most of my people who follow me and all, they know I'm from Angola, but they might not know about Waukegan. Waukegan is a state park in Angola, Indiana. Everybody who's grew up in Steuben County and even outside of Indiana and all that have came there. And yes, I would agree, Trent. That is a great way to kick off the channel. That is a great way to do that.
And then all of a sudden, like buzz started forming, and then I can tell you, I had no sponsors then.
Yeah.
But I was still working on the side. So, but by the end of the month, I had about 10 sponsors, and then I was ready to go. Then I quit my job.
Wow. That's crazy. So wait, what job were you doing outside of doing the video work?
Oh, when I first started the channel?
Yeah.
So like I was telling you, there's a place in Coldwater called Q1 Video I was working at. I was an editor there. And they gave me the idea of doing an Angola because they were doing the same thing.
Wow.
The only difference is they pretty much bring people in their studio and talk. And I was like, this is boring.
Yes. Yeah. Even
though we're kind of doing the same thing. But however, they were doing this on TV every show. And they had one guy, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that gives you a perspective. There's a guy who he would read the Coldwater newspaper. He would read the top headlines. And that was a show.
Interesting.
So I thought, I was like, how can we do this better is to do field work, is to get on the field, talk to people, be outside, just cover events. And then we started covering the parades every year for 10 years, I think. Or the July parade, any kind of events going to Angola, like Bill Clinton spoke in Angola. I got to record that.
Oh, wow. That was, well, yeah, I probably wasn't born for that. Never mind.
You were around then. It was 2008.
Okay, I was around, yeah, but I definitely wasn't old enough to even remember that he was in Angola. That's pretty wild. That's a moment to capture. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a history lesson because Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were running for president on the Democratic side.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana became a huge battleground state that year.
Yeah.
And so Bill Clinton was everywhere. He was in Kentville. I mean, this is kind of funny to say. He's in Kentville. He's at Auburn. He's all over the place.
That's crazy. That's wild.
Yeah.
So with One-on-One Lakes Network, right? And that's first of all just a very inspirational story for, I feel like, a lot of people who want to get into something and they're working these other jobs. And even if it is you're in that field that you're interested in, you're working in that field, but you're not the head of something in that field. You know what I mean? Where you want to take a step back, leave that fucking job and do your own thing. I think that's really great. That's kind of something that I kind of say, it's almost a similar situation, even though I feel like for most of the time when I started working out in the industry, I started out working for myself only. And then kind of have gone on to these bigger projects where I'm, now it's like, okay, I might be a PA or I might be an assistant director. It's like, I'm not the number one person at the top of things, but I'm still in my field and I'm making great money, so I can't complain. But I'm working towards getting to being the director, the producer, and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to One-on-One Lakes Network, so that's, first of all, that's a great way to kick off the channel, going on Waukegan, doing this whole documentary about Waukegan. I think that's actually amazing. In the sponsors, right? So what were the sponsors that you had that kind of that came off after that first month of running the channel?
What specific sponsors or
Yeah, because I think a better question is, do those, because One-on-One Lakes Network, first of all, the name in itself is very specific to Steuben County, which a lot of people, Steuben County has 101 lakes. Apparently, I haven't seen all 101. I've seen probably about like 20 or 10 or something. But One-on-One Lakes Network.
that's funny
So like,
because
go ahead.
I was thinking we were running show ideas years ago, and one of those was to find the 101 lake.
Right. Yeah. I've honestly thought the same damn thing. It's like, do I want to do like, I've thought about doing like a drone shot of every single lake that's
Yeah,
in Steuben County or something.
yeah, I have too. Exactly. Yeah.
But so with the name being so specific to Steuben County and Angola and all that kind of stuff, like did all of those sponsors come from Steuben County, or were there some that was outside of
Well,
Indiana or
mostly,
outside of that?
obviously, mostly they were for the most part. I'm thinking in totality.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly were people in Angola and Fremont, because the cable reach it's really specific. You had to have Mediacom. That was the one drawback behind having it. I couldn't reach the whole county. I could only reach people that had cable. So I was competing against cable, DirecTV, Dish Network, and then people that didn't have cable. So back then there was about 8,000 subscribers of cable. So that was my reach. So whenever I went out and sold, I would say Steuben County has 8,000 subscribers to Mediacom, which includes Fremont, Angola, all the lakes. And yeah, so there were specific people outside of the county. Like I remember there was a coffee house in Coldwater. She wanted to get all the lake people because there wasn't really a coffee house in Angola at the time. There was one downtown once. But
Yeah.
anyway, those are the type of sponsors I was getting. People that not so much wanted to wanted, what do you call it, ROI, return on investment. They just wanted to. They want to be part of it because they saw we were doing putting different things on, putting unique things on that was about the area, which includes history, sports, anything going on in the community. So
yeah, that's great. So with that at first, right? I mean, of course, you worked at the place in Coldwater. Did you know specifically that you wanted to cater specifically to Steuben County, to Angola? Like, is that the type of the content within One-on-One Lakes Network? You wanted to cater specifically to Angola, to Steuben County? Was that the initial goal when you started the channel?
yeah, absolutely. Because that's why it had to be. Otherwise, there wouldn't be much interest in it if I was covering something nationally, but this was specific for this county.
For sure. That's right. So with that, right, like some of the things, because I'm subscribed to let's tell all now, but I've been subscribed for a while.
Yeah.
And watching the different videos. Like one of the videos that always amazes me the most, I think, is the video showing driving through Angola at like I don't know if it was like in the 80s or something, or 70s.
Yeah,
I have to find the video.
Yeah.
I'm gonna link the video, but man, that video is wild to me because I wasn't born. My family was my mom and my dad and all, and I think my brother's gonna kill me for this, but I think he was born at the time, but he was super young. But like just seeing how it was, and then asking my mom, like, "Yo, mom, do you remember this? Like,
Yeah.
do you remember seeing they had the adult theater? Do you remember that? They had the adult theater, right where Kmart used to be."
Yeah. There was a putt by there, and I think it was hole 6 or 7. You could see. I mean, it's like amazing that there was actually
that's funny. Yeah,
I mean,
that's hilarious. That it's by the putt. I didn't know all that. That's actually that's the funniest shit.
That's probably where Walmart is. That's where the putt was, or yeah, right in front of the Walmart would be now is where the putt was.
Oh wow, that's funny.
When Kmart, yeah. So that's an interesting story too, because that video, I had no idea about it until Larry Bassett. He's a realtor in the area, and he's actually one of my clients. And then he was helping us looking for a house at the time.
Yeah,
when we were looking for a house, because I was living in Fremont. I was trying to get into Angola, we ended up not moving for different circumstances, but he was looking at some houses and he told me about this. It's like, you gotta get that to me like as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So he got the tape on it. It was like the same thing as the documentary on Pokagon State Park is when I showed that. And then I put it on YouTube and it I wouldn't say it was a viral or anything, but it was just for the area.
It was huge.
People really enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's huge because people like there's something special about being in an environment and then really getting like a look back in time in that environment that you're currently living in. Like, I think that is something super special, especially for people who live in a small town like Angola. And seeing that I thought was really awesome. And there's a bunch of videos on the channel that is like that. But when it comes to getting, go ahead.
1930s. That was probably the first film of Steuben County probably ever existed.
1930s. Yeah.
And I don't know the whole story behind it because it seems like they mapped it out. It looks like a well-to-do guy. Like he's this rich white dude. He's like kind of big. I mean, they all dressed like kind of nice back then. And then they got a map of Steuben County. They're pointing at it. And then you didn't put suitcases inside the trunk then in the 30s. I guess you just put them on the side of your car and just take off. And then they went to the lake. And the first shot of the mound is I've been up there. I don't know if you have or not, but you have to get permission from the Steuben County commissioners. But you can get up into the Steuben County courthouse and you can shoot down on the mound. I did that like 3 times. Yeah. And that guy did the same thing back in the 1930s, that same shot.
Wow. That's crazy. Now, I actually have gotten from the mayor one time. My mom knows the mayor and is really good friends with the mayor. And then everyone knows my uncle John Day, who's everybody knows.
Right. Yep.
So I got permission once and I really wanted to do something like for a music video there, but I ended up never happening. But I've seen those different shots like on Facebook and other stuff like that. And that's amazing. I have to watch the 1930s one because I don't think I've ever seen that. That's even before my mom was born. So I'd actually like to see how that is.
My mom was born too. So
yeah, that's insane. So
it's cool. They go to Tri-State and then they go to the lake. They're actually on the lake and the people have bath caps on. They're jumping off the back in the day, Bledsoe's Beach was huge. It was like the biggest thing going on, Lake James. You have dances and all kinds of stuff going on.
Wow.
So that's and there's footage of that too. And they used to do live they did like live radio broadcasts from Bledsoe's Beach. So back in that day, that was a big thing to have live broadcasts of radio. So
that's crazy, man. Just to even hear about the differences is nuts, right? So with all of that crazy footage, right? How do you usually obtain that footage? Because I think that's something from old archival footage, like me personally, doing some of the projects I've done, sometimes I've wanted to get old archival footage from stuff. And the easiest way, at least at the budgets that I've usually had, is sometimes, you can find certain stuff on YouTube and like, take the link and get that video transferred over. But most of the times for stuff like super, super old like that has to be a process. Like, was it hard to get those types of pieces of footage?
Yeah, the 1930s footage I got it by pure accident. It's only because I saw it when I was at PBS. We were working on a documentary.
Yeah.
And Todd Grimes was a producer. I was a PA. Hey, Todd. He still works at PBS, by the way. He's a good friend of mine.
Shout out, Todd.
And he went to Angola also. He graduated in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
And we were reviewing some footage for, we were doing where he was doing a historical part of Smith Field. Smith Field is a small airport in Fort Wayne. And during the mid 2000s, they were thinking about shutting it down. And for whatever reason, it's still running today. But we thought this was a good story to tell. So the aviator, his name was Smith. Well, we got all this archive footage from the Fort Wayne Historical Society, and attached to it was all that footage that I was telling you about from the 1930s of Angola. And then Todd
Wow.
was reviewing it. It was on a reel to reel, like a big 2-inch, 1-inch reels.
Yeah.
And we had to transfer it off to another tape format. And he goes, Trent, you got to see this. This is Angola. I was like, holy shit. It's like, I've never seen anything like this. It's 1930. And the funny scene, and maybe you can clip this in, watching that footage, someone actually pulls out in front of someone on the mound, even back then.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny.
But
That's
yeah,
wild.
I mean, it just had to be the right place, right time. A lot of that footage I found was just because I asked, and I was doing a documentary. And then the thing with Larry, that was he's the one that recorded it. So shout out to Larry for the 1980s footage. So
that's great. So I mean, I guess you've definitely built up certain relationships and connections with people to be able to get this footage, because I think one of the good things about this generation, I guess, or even the introduction into like YouTube, right? Which we're also going to get into that as well, because you mentioned something about Channel 20 and then how YouTube, that was kind of pre-YouTube times. I want to get into that as well, but you had to build up these connections, I imagine, and relationships with these people to get this footage and these nostalgic pieces of like history. Like you've obviously kind of built that up with certain people around the community.
Yeah. Once I started airing some of these, I think I started when Facebook started. I did a call out a couple times of basically I would say I would transfer your film if you got any old footage of Suwannee County. And I only think one person took me up on that. But there's a guy that did a book called History of Lake James, same thing. He got a hold of me and said, hey, I found I've been doing research on this book of History of Lake James. I can't think of his name. And her name is Flame, I think. I got a copy of that book somewhere. But they asked for the footage that I got permission to use, if I could use it. I said it's not for me to keep from anyone. It's for everyone. It's not for me to you to say yes or no. Yeah, absolutely, you can use it. But in return, he's like, I've got some footage for you, and it was the same thing. I gave him some of that footage I was telling you about, the 30s footage of Suwannee County, of Lake James and Clear Lake. And he sent me all these old family films that were transferred. And this is of Lake James Christian Assembly, which has a huge history, by the way. Wow. The train used to stop there at the Lake James Christian Assembly before it was a camp. All the trains would unload there. And we have actually footage of this. All the people would get on the boat and they would disperse out to the cottages. That's how you'd get there.
Wow. What?
And you see the footage of they're hanging off the top and stuff. It's like, it's crazy.
That's wild. What year was that? Like,
oh man, that could be the early 20s, late 30s, maybe. Because the roads weren't developed. And they used to have mail. The mail used to go around by boat.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy to think about. Mail by the boat. Like, It makes sense, but it's also just insane to think about that. That's crazy. Wow.
And this footage I found, and you'd be impressed. These guys were making their own films back then. It was something called Loch Ness on Lake James, and they made these little films, and they were doing reverse film, like they're jumping off and they're reversing the film back, so they're going back up. That's awesome. Yeah, they were making films back then.
That's insane. That's so cool. That's just amazing to hear those stories. I mean, with all the amazing like footage and stuff that you've got from that time, was there something that you've seen that like really amazed you? Like what's one of the things that you've either personally captured yourself? Well, actually both. Things like events or things that you personally captured that you were the most proud of, and also things that you had gotten footage wise, archival wise, that you were just like kind of blown away by.
Wow. That's tough, man. I'm cheating now. I'm looking at my YouTube channel.
Take your time. It's all good. There's a lot of stuff there. I mean, like there's just so much amazing stuff that a lot of people wouldn't imagine, that's on that channel who are from Angola. People would be surprised to see it. So, I mean, take your time, look at all the stuff that you've got. I know there's some stuff that is just, that had to be kind of, that had to be just mind blowing for you to kind of like realize like, wow, this is something that I got for the channel, or this is something that I never knew was even a part of Angola's history or Steuben County's history, situations like that.
There's a house in Fremont, which we did a historical tour over, and it's still there. It still exists. It's right by the tracks. It is, we did a whole, we spent at least 2 hours there. I wish I could remember the name of the guy that owned it, but it was built, it's the oldest house in Steuben County. I'm guessing, don't quote me on that, but now what people don't know about Steuben County is there's an abolitionist history in Steuben County that most people don't know about. There were a lot of people there in the Underground Railroad. So for a little history lesson, the slaves would travel at night so they would not be caught, because they had the fugitive slave law back then, where actually slave captures could actually go into the north and return the slaves back. Yeah. And so there were lights that they would put, and this is a huge house, and there's hidden walls and stuff where the slaves would hide during the day. So they'd hide in the walls during the day. So that was one of the stops, is this house in Fremont that still exists today. It's amazing history. It's three stories. There's a lady that did a whole background on, there was at least, I think she counted at least 20 houses that were abolitionist houses. Yeah. That were on the Underground Railroad. So it's kind of an amazing thing to find out about, just some little.
Yeah, that's crazy. I see you have a little friend behind you. There's someone peeking out. It's pretty funny. That's funny. But yeah, no, that's actually, I think I've heard a story. I've definitely known about the Underground Railroad in Steuben County. A specific house. Yeah, no, I think that's kind of news to me. I'd have to ask my mom. She knows a lot of the history with that, as well as there's another lady who works at Trine who knows a lot. Debbie McHenry, all those folks all kind of know a lot of different stuff. But yeah, that's really amazing. I mean, that's something that has to be wild. But that was something that you actually captured. I guess, was there anything that footage wise that you gained from somebody that was kind of surprising to you?
Yeah, I think seeing that the 1987, because I actually grew up then, so that was kind of that was a great find to find. Yeah, I mean, all the old stuff is cool, but the 81 was more nostalgic for me. So
yeah, it felt good to kind of really to bring you back to that time too, especially, right? Like, I feel like watching that and realizing like, oh, I was around in this time, like it kind of brings back a little bit more nostalgia for you, I'm sure. Yeah, that's great.
This is a small thing, but there were 4 boys in 2010, 2011 that died in a, I'm sure Alex
Bauer, Riley Zimmer, Evan and Matt. Yeah, I was a freshman then, and then I played football with both Alex Bauer and Riley Zimmer. And my friend Austin, we were in the same grade. That was his older brother Alex had passed. Yeah, I remember that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but being part of that was, during a tragic time like that was really kind of, I thought, really brought the whole community together again. Yeah. A tragedy like that. And I actually got to, just by chance, I asked the school if I could do anything, and they let me come in and record one day. And some of the students came up to me, and I said, look, I'm not going to interview you. I said, the mic's yours, the floor is yours. And all these students just one by one just came up and just talked to the mic we were there for like 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I never knew that you like came to actual high school and everything.
Yeah, yeah. I came to high school, and I think the principal at the time allowed me to do that. And I just told the kids, like, hey, I'm not going to interview. I'm just, if you want to say anything about your friends, just go ahead. And one by one they got up. I'm surprised how much they shared and talked about it. But that was a really neat thing to be part of. Maybe give them some small help during a difficult time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, that was definitely a crazy time, and it's been over 10, 11 years, which is insane, because I definitely remember where I was, everything I was doing during that time. Yeah, that was definitely a crazy time.
Yeah. I started covering sports. We started, really, we used to cover trying sports, high school football, high school basketball, and some baseball. We didn't do much baseball, but all those things we, so what we did that week is we ran out with no commercials, and I think I ran it for 4 days. It's just a tribute to those. I got all these pictures from all these families, friends. They all kind of put together. Actually, one of my first live streams too that I ever did. So.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a crazy thing. But that's wild. So with all this stuff, kind of back to 101 Lakes Network, with all the stuff that you've had a chance to do, get for that particular channel, because you obviously your switch over to Tell Productions, was there something, or is there something that like you've heard about as far as like Steuben County's history, Angola's history, that you would like to get a hold of, like getting a hold of that footage, or maybe there was something that kind of slipped past you one time and like to get eventually?
Yeah, there was a guy that had some footage.
Like, have you had moments like those with the channel?
Yeah. There's a, remember I told you that somebody asked me, they transfer film from the 60s. That's what I like to see. I've never seen Angola in the 60s. I've only seen pictures, but he actually has film of it. And I'd be interested to get that.
That would be.
I got 20s, 30s, 40s, got the 80s. Nice to see the 60s and 70s. Yeah. But so when I started the channel, there was a need for production. So I started my tell-all. It was first tell-all at first. When I started in 2005, it was called Tell-all Productions Channel 20. Yeah, and I thought I needed some branding, so I got rid of the Tell-all Productions, and just that became my corporate business, or stuff I did for businesses on the side.
Yeah.
And that's why I kept it, because that's why I still do that today. I'm still doing video work today, but I think I stopped doing it in 2015. So, but your question was, trying to get us the best footage. I don't know, man.
It's probably a lot, because you've captured so much. You know what I mean? And I can only imagine that has to be difficult to try to go through all the many stuff that you probably have gotten a hold of or heard about. But I do want to break into before we get into Tell-all Productions, I do want to break into specifically just maybe some of the marketing and promotional stuff that you've had to deal with 101 Lakes. So, like, for instance, you talked about Channel 20 and just like the Dish and Mediacom, right? And just how that played like a pretty important part with Channel 20 specifically. Because I think that's kind of the situation with a lot of public access, right? It's like you have to have a certain kind of provider to be able to use it. Yeah, I remember that was kind of something that I learned about when I was on an interview with the Jeff Landis I was talking about before. Yeah. I think he had some weird provider you had to use, and it was only at nighttime you could watch it too. So it was like it was kind of odd just at times. But when YouTube came around, right? Like I would imagine when Channel 20 was around, YouTube was probably just new, or maybe wasn't as fluent as, of course, as it is now. But like when you put all the stuff on YouTube, did that kind of open up a little bit more opportunity for you as far as like the
Yeah.
amount of things you're able to get? Because that you don't really everybody was had the internet, and they were able to, like, go on YouTube and view all this stuff. Like, did that give you more flexibility to have YouTube at your vessel?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the first year I got pretty much on it the first year. So I thought, well, here's a cool way to showcase your work, you know. And what I used to do is I would film a commercial, I'd edit it, then I had to export it, then I have to make a DVD, then I have to label it, and then put it in an envelope. Then I have to go deliver it, have them watch it.
That's process is way too long.
I know, and approve it. It's like, this sucks. I hate doing this. When this came out, I was like, oh my gosh, I can send them an email link. They can just watch it on their computer. There you go.
Perfect. That's awesome. Yeah, YouTube definitely helps out so much. Just any of those video platforms on the internet definitely helps out a lot. And I think honestly, like Dish, Mediacom, like those type of providers, like, for cable and stuff like that, I feel like that is starting to really die out.
Sure.
It's dying out completely, even though it's dying out. Yeah. Cause I haven't watched cable in a long time. Like in my apartment now, I don't have cable. I just have the internet specifically. I don't ever watch like TV like that much. If I do, I'm watching YouTube or I'll watch Netflix or whatever. All this, like, all that stuff is being baked into a lot of different services and technology now. So cable is kind of almost obsolete in some ways. But then you think about like Mediacom or Comcast and all those type of companies, they own a lot of the stuff that is creating all of these different things for different platforms.
It's funny now, they're developing apps and
yeah
they're doing streaming. So they're a little late to the ball game, but
yeah, everybody's trying to play catch up. It's interesting. But so Tell All Productions, that is what you are currently at the helm of. With that, like I said, this kind of goes back to my very first statement I put at the very beginning of the podcast, is asking about One on One Lakes Network. And then all of a sudden, I remember you told me, One on One Lakes is not around anymore. And basically Tell All Productions was the new thing. What made you make that switch? Like, what made you get rid of One on One Lakes, at least that the name and I guess the brand of it? Like, what made you want to switch into something that was more production based, client based?
Well, 2014, I was, you talked about excellence, so I'm going to brag a little bit.
Yeah, please brag, please.
In
this is the excellent podcast. Everyone is supposed to brag.
In 2012, we did the first stream of sporting events. So we started streaming in 2012. I knew this, and I was telling my ex-wife, she's my wife at the time. I was saying, like, this is where this is going. I said, every year we're losing, because I get the numbers for the cable subscribers, it's going down. So, I mean, you'd have to be a fool not to see what was happening. So it's like I started pushing everything online. So I could stream it online. I could still do channel 20. That helps me with getting sponsors. But then I started doubling up. I was doing streaming. Then we're putting highlights on YouTube. But back then, YouTube was not streaming. Facebook was not streaming. You could only use live stream or Ustream. So yeah, in 2014, I did all the Trines. They had a huge softball tournament, and I streamed that whole event. I was up in a cherry picker in the outfield. Nice. Just a one-man band.
Yeah.
Shitty weather. Just the weirdest weather I've ever experienced in my life. So like the first day, it's at the beginning of May. It was like 85. Okay. And I got a sunburn, right? So the next day it was 55. The next day it was 43. Just a complete cold came out of nowhere. And one day the wind was blowing so hard they had to bring me down. So I don't know if you remember, there's a, all videographers need to know this stuff. They used to have cherry pickers or scissor lifts.
Yeah.
And football. And they would go up and they would film up high, so you could get that nice high angle. Mm-hmm. Well, at Notre Dame, one kid was killed. And
oh wow,
because of the scissor lift fell over, and Because I remember a
Whoa,
lot of people didn't
yeah.
like my Facebook post, but back then it was like 7 years ago. I
Yeah.
said the coach should be fired for this. Coach Kelly, which he's still the coach of. He said he should be fired. It's his responsibility. There's no reason a kid should die filming practice. You know what I mean?
Oh, it was a practice that they filmed.
Yeah, it's practice. They used to do
Oh,
on the
damn.
practice field anyway, but they had to bring me down. It was blowing that hard, and I said I had controls there, but the battery was dead. They forgot to plug me in. So,
Oh man. So
please
just
bring me down. Please bring me down.
overall, just a crazy, crazy time. Wow, damn. I never knew that.
5 games, and then and I think on the last day, the weather finally got those 2 days were the worst May events I've ever covered outside, and these girls had to play in that, but at least they're moving around. Like I'm just stuck in there trying to film, trying to stream. So, but yeah.
Damn.
So in 2015, I decided not to do the cable anymore because they decided to. I was going to be charged a lot more for the channel, so I thought there was no point anymore. So I was going to stream it online, but I was getting a divorce at the time. There was just too much going on in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just had to take a step back into doing it. But with Tell All Productions,
sorry.
No, you're good. But with Tell All Productions, you definitely seem to like kind of come in with a new brand, shake up the look a little bit, give it a more professional look, and also go straight in for wanting to do like promo commercial style content for people. Like what with that, I mean, what was your approach? Like what was the difference in your approach for Tell All Productions than it was then for One-on-One Lakes Network?
Well, when you're running a channel with a lot of content, you're running around. So what happens when you run around? You're not as prepared. When you're doing a lot of events, your preparation is limited. And you're doing a lot of live events, which I was transitioning doing more of this live stream, just running and gunning kind of thing. So
yeah,
that's the stuff I missed was actually like I did this thing at a cemetery, which you may have saw on my channel, which is that's something I planned out for 4 days of shooting, and that's something you just couldn't. Hey, can you check it outside? All I hear is are you making cereal?
No.
I don't know if you can hear that, but it's funny.
No, I can hear a little bit. That's funny. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, have you always been like a one-man band within Tell All Productions, or like have you tried to expand it out, or usually like what is your process usually when you do some of these different event coverage or planning out a commercial?
When I was busy, like I'm basically doing it part-time now. I did work at Vestal for a number of years. I was doing most of their videos there, but normally I always had a PA with me. So you probably know Austin, right? Austin Hall.
Yeah. Shout out to Austin. It's been a long time since I've spoken to him, but yeah, I remember Austin.
So he was an intern for me years ago at the network.
Oh wow.
So he's such a great guy, and he's a hard worker. And anyway, he's my go-to PA. So but yeah, I always have to have a PA. I haven't done anything huge since my PBS days where we had multiple people working on stuff. So yeah, I'm basically still a one person or maximum two. So
yeah, for sure. So with most of the stuff that like with Tell All Productions, like I remember me and you worked together one time, and I honestly forget what it was for, some event. Like it was an event that I didn't know Angola did, and it was kind of cool to see that, like them like celebrating, giving awards to some of the different local businesses in Steuben County. What was that event called? Do you remember?
Back when I was doing One-on-One Lakes Network, I got into all these groups like clubs and stuff, but one of them is the Chamber of Commerce. So each city has. So Angola has a greater area chamber of commerce. So
Yeah.
that was an event that that they covered. Yeah. So every year they do, like, they give out businesses to basically awards. You're right, to businesses
Yeah.
or people that give the most to the chamber, and they usually have a speaker and stuff. So I covered that event for years.
And I think this is a one that we'll definitely be able to get into a very good conversation about it. Just the battles of creativity and working in this environment for video, film, and photography in Angola, in Steuben County. So let me kind of walk you into, like, I guess some of my struggles and stuff, right? I think when around the time in 2017 when we had worked together that first time,
Right.
well, actually, not even before. Let me go back into when I first got into back home into Angola after college. So, I graduated from film school, came back to Angola, was hoping it was going to be a good experience, but at the same time, I wasn't super excited because I knew that Angola did not have the market for film or video
Right.
whatsoever. No market at all. There's no commercials like that happening, at least not a lot of good ones, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
there's not too many, there's no films being shot there. There's no music video. So I had to kind of come in thinking, well, what can I do? Right. And who will I meet? There was only one person at the time who I kind of knew about who was doing video that I think most people knew about. This guy named Miles Meyer, who I've also interviewed before, back when the channel was Stefon's Vlogs, but now it's a podcast. You can check out that interview. I'll link that below for people. But yeah, I interviewed him, or I knew about him, and then I started to learn more about more videographers and filmmakers and stuff like that. But most of them are always out of Fort Wayne. None of them were really from Angola. So then I think Austin, I think I worked with Austin one time for my cousin who was doing music at the time, and they were doing some stuff. They were filming a lot of stuff while I was in film school. And eventually me and him crossed paths. We met up a few times, had a few meetings and everything. And then he told me about you. And then I knew about a few other people that was doing videos in Angola, maybe a little bit later on. There's the dude, and I've never met him personally, but I think his name is Chris Sanchez or something like that. I think his name is.
Yeah. He's not from Angola.
Yeah, he's not from Angola, but he does a lot of stuff with Angola. I know he's from like
Oh, he does.
Warsaw.
Yeah, he's from Warsaw. I know Chris pretty well. He does a lot of the tourism bureau for Steuben County, so he does a lot of drone work, and
Yeah,
but he ran their website for years. Yeah, he's a good guy.
okay, yeah. I've met him, or I've not met him, but I've heard of him and kind of seen some of his stuff. And then obviously, like I said, met you and everything. So I remember when me and you had a conversation. We spoke a lot about just hearing some of your conversations about the stuff that you've done. I feel like me and you both had kind of similar struggles in a way in trying to maybe get the most out of our experience doing this kind of work here in Angola. I would say from my experience, right, working in Angola and trying to do stuff, and I'm going to exclude Fort Wayne specifically because Fort Wayne is where I mainly worked. Which would make sense, right? Fort Wayne is the second biggest city. There's a much bigger market, even though I still don't feel like there's a market for film and video in Fort Wayne. Not yet, at least, not for it to be successful in any sort of way or to be thriving how they want it to thrive. But when it comes to Angola specifically, I think a lot of my struggles is, and it still kind of is now too, whenever I try to work back there, is that Angola, the businesses in Angola don't realize that they need commercials. They need video marketing to survive, in my humble opinion. I think word of mouth is always like an important thing for a lot of these businesses. Word of mouth is what, I think still continues to be the number one thing for any business, truthfully. But when you look at companies such as that are much more massive than any business in Angola, but like Apple, or Samsung or Sony, or just these companies that make these things that everybody uses in their day to day, or even to relate it to something that Angola is familiar with, like coffee shops. There's so many damn coffee shops in Angola for no reason.
Yeah, now there is. Yeah.
So Starbucks, right? Starbucks is now in Angola. It wasn't Angola before, took it away, then they brought it back. They wanted to run it back again, but these companies, they thrive off of social media marketing, especially nowadays, and they thrive heavily. And part of that social media marketing is so big with video, especially. and you start to see how video is starting to become the number one thing. Like I just heard something, I heard this from somebody on set one time, but I think that they were going to switch around Instagram to being more video focused, which is interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. And I love video. Like that's my career, but like marketing wise, it being not strictly, but just mainly focused on video is going to be an interesting take to see how that goes. But
now they're limited to 1 minute, isn't it? Or 2 minutes?
yeah, it is limited to 1 minute, but now they have IGTV. So if you release something that's larger, yeah, it can go on to IGTV. And now they have the Instagram Reels. Like, all these companies are really like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. They're all trying to compete with each other. So it's kind of interesting how they're blending everything together, and everything looks so similar. But my struggles was that a lot of I remember there's one time specifically where I was making a whole business plan of trying to go out to these different companies in Angola to reach out to them about doing some commercials for them. And I remember I had this whole flyer built out. I had business cards, and I would just go into these businesses and ask them, hey, like I am a filmmaker here in town, and give them flyers and all this kind of stuff. And out of all the businesses that took the opportunity to work with me, it was actually funny. It was when WeHop was around. Craig Everidge, and I didn't even actually meet with Craig that day. It was with somebody else, but Craig gave me a call back or an email back and said, yeah, let's do something. And then, I worked with them. People can go check that out. That's on SW Films Vimeo page, but they took a chance, and I thought that was great, and
I went to high school with Craig, by the way.
Oh, really? Yeah. Went to high school. So I
did a commercial years ago for his. Well, he has Everidge Auto, and he's got.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's funny. Cool. That's funny. Yeah, like that was such a cool thing. And then slowly there started to be more opportunities. The most recent opportunity I got for a company out of Angola or Steuben County was actually with Wenzel Metal Spinning.
I saw that.
Thank you.
That's a tough environment because it's so dark in there. I mean,
yeah.
I've shot in those metal spinning places. It is super dark. It's hard to get. It's hard to get some clean video.
It was tough a little bit. I mean, I think definitely it worked. I think I had the right kind of camera gear I needed. I didn't really use any I didn't use any artificial lights at all. That would have been just a little too much. But with that opportunity, like that kind of just came out of nowhere. Like shout out to Ryan Funkhauser, who was one of my football coaches when I was like a junior and senior in high school. He reached out to my brother's friend. And then my brother reached out to me and said, hey, Funk wants you to go do this and do that and do this. And then I did that. I ended up shooting in Angola and then having to drive to Alabama to shoot some stuff as well for their factory down there. That was really cool. And from that, I, was like, okay, I specifically am not so interested in trying to film anything in that industrial kind of world. That's not really something that I'm interested in too much. But I think the only other company I would like to aim for in that field would probably be Vestal. I mean, why not go for the biggest guy, but that's, of course, it just depends on budget and timing, and schedule.
I've worked there. They won't do anything.
Which is crazy. They should, because Vestal is such a gigantic company.
Instead of hiring me to do their work, they hired me as an employee.
Oh, wow. See,
that way they could pay me less than my corporate rate would be.
Yeah.
I worked there for 5 years. And anyway,
that's sad. But like, I guess basically, right, with the struggles I've had, like I said, is these companies don't necessarily know what they want. They definitely don't know what they want when it comes to social media marketing, video marketing. They don't know how it goes because they don't strive to look and research and see how it could help them. And I remember when me and you spoke back then, it was kind of the same issue with like some of these companies don't have the money. That's another big thing. They do not want to spend the money on this stuff of what it costs to make these type of videos and social media marketing. They don't want to spend that money at all. But I remember me and you spoke and we had that conversation, and some of those similar situations have happened to you. I mean, would you agree? Would you agree that it's kind of, with Angola being such one, not having that kind of market at all, do you agree that it is really tough to try to get people to get on board with, I guess, the way of the world now? Like social media marketing, social media is a part of the world, and I think it's going to be a part of the world for 10, 20 more years. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, there's certain people, especially in we have when you're in a small town, you have a big manufacturing set. So a lot of these companies are not from here. They have one of their branches here.
Mm,
So it's tough to get, um, especially when you're trying to get into those corporate videos are, they're not great, but they pay well. So trying to get into them, it can be lucrative for you as a businessman, but as maybe not as a videographer or as an editor, it's not appealing that way. But so a lot of them have that mindset of they don't need to advertise because they already whatever they make, they don't need it.
yeah.
They feel like they don't need it because they have a certain set that they already do. So I always try to tell people, like, you want to sell your company, not necessarily like, what do you do? Like, there was a big push, like the Steuben County Economic Development, they hired me to do some videos back in 2013, basically because they were trying to present manufacturing as not just where you start out as and have a job, but you can actually build a career. So I got to interview people and see how they made stuff. It's just like some of these shows, like how it's made. Those kinds of things can be interesting if you can form that in. But
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, definitely. They're basically, because I was everywhere. I try to join all these clubs and stuff just so I could just be known. So if whenever this came up, maybe they'd hire me for a video. That's basically the thought was. But yeah, you knock on a lot of doors too. So, and eventually you knock on enough doors, someone's going to say yes. But a lot of times, you have small towns that they have two things. I talked about, they have small businesses and they have the manufacturing. The small businesses might want to do something, but like the middle of the road factories and stuff like that, those are tough because they don't want to market. And just like Vestal decided they needed a videographer full time. They never had one before.
Right.
And like you, I know a lot of those people that I eventually worked for. And I always ask them, like, why aren't you guys like doing videos or doing more videos? Well,
but even just social media, like these local mom and pop shops and all these local, but they're not good at social media.
Yeah.
Like they don't know how, because here's what I have to just to all the people that may be listening who are from Angola, who are maybe like older than me, right? Because I'm only 25, so I'm a youngin' to a lot of people.
You are.
But but I will say this, right? This is gonna sound harsh to people, but like these older folks eventually are going to be gone. And the thing is that those people are usually at the head of these types of businesses.
Right.
And they don't know how to use social media. They don't know how to use Facebook. They don't know how to use Instagram. They don't know how to click the record button half the time on an iPhone or whatever, just to capture something. And I don't say that disrespectfully, but I say that as in these types of things are important to learn to keep your business alive. I think there's a lot of businesses that have died off in Angola and just everywhere in the world who have not focused on how to market themselves the right way. I guarantee you, during the pandemic, right? The pandemic was a tough time for so many businesses, especially local small businesses, that if they just probably learned how to reach out to their customers, through social media, through video, they would still be here. I believe that's the truth.
Yeah, I agree. I tell you, one guy that does it, that embraces it, is a guy named Todd Saylor.
Oh yeah, Todd. I know Todd and Tom said all those folks. Yeah, he's on it. He's the shining example, I think, for entrepreneurs in Angola, to be honest, of how to keep yourself alive and relevant in this space.
And they had that huge block party, which I saw some footage of. That was really cool.
Yeah. And I think you captured something for Tom's Donuts.
2 years ago. 2 years ago, I did some work for him. Yeah, we filmed not all summer, but we filmed Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day. And we put a little commercial together for him at the end of that.
That's cool.
So that was fun. When Todd did paid serve, he was a client of mine. So he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah,
I got
absolutely.
I got a couple of his books and a t-shirt. So shout out to Todd
Yeah,
Saylor.
shout out to Todd. I might have to interview him one time. I've never met him personally. I've met Tom many times because he would always show up at football practice
Oh, sure. Yeah.
back in the day. But like, and
He was
plus,
our, yeah, he was a sponsor of ours for years for football,
oh yeah,
football games. So I actually got him to, he did play, no, he did color commentary when I used to
yeah,
announce the game. So
that's
that was cool having him that year. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, social media is the way to go now. I mean, everybody's on it. So
Everybody, and it's just the thing is, I think that these businesses, they like social media is so much more than just making a post. Like when I see some of these businesses, local businesses in Angola, how they communicate certain things or how they put out certain notifications of events or certain products for their products or for their service, it just never sounds appealing to me. And of course there's different audiences for a lot of this stuff. So but as
Right.
somebody who loves my hometown, because I want to give back. So I want to give back certain things to my hometown and provide opportunities. I would love to provide. I've always wanted to provide opportunities for these companies to look back and be proud at something that they're showing for the business. Like with Winslow Metal Spinning, they really took a huge chance to want to do a video, especially because they are in such an industrial market.
Sure.
But what I loved about it and what I told them so many times when they hired me is I said, okay, they're the biggest metal spinning company in the country, which is something I didn't realize until I got hired on. And I didn't realize, I was like, oh shit, they really are a big deal. Like they've created stuff for some of the craziest types of industries, for like stuff for the military, stuff for all these different Boeing airplanes. And like they've done stuff for even film sets. They created something for one of the Fast and Furious movies. They've done a lot of stuff. And I told them, I said, well, it depends on how you want to be recognized, right? They are the biggest, but do they want to be known as the biggest? Do they want to speak to their excellence as we do at the Excellent Podcast? Do they want to do that? And I think they did it. And I think it was great to create something for them that could really show that. Like, that's why I wanted to make the commercial kind of feel tough. Like, one of my inspirations for the commercial was like, when I look at Ford commercials, like I really would love to work on a Ford commercial eventually one day, but like they're Ford tough. Like they have just so much grit and gut in a lot of their commercials, and just like, it just feels like a tough working environment. And I wanted to kind of show that and kind of provide that through voiceover and just the shots and the cinematography and everything. I wanted to provide that there. So, them wanting to do a commercial, I thought was very bold. And I would suggest that to any companies listening, take those risks. I'm telling you, it will help you out. It will lead you into better places. Most definitely. But
Yeah, like you said, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
good point, because like you're talking about excellence. Like these companies, they have something as a tool to sell, and when you're the biggest or good at anything, I mean, you need to sell that.
Absolutely.
So you can earn more money. So how you present it in a pamphlet? Here's a pamphlet of, hey, we're the biggest metal spinning. Like, no, you show a kick-ass video and present it to a customer. Like, hey, I want to do business with them.
That's how it works. Because newspaper, radio, and even billboards, like a lot of that stuff isn't always grabbing people's attention.
It doesn't excite you.
Yeah, it doesn't excite you. It's not exciting. Plus, you don't see that all the time, right? Like, I mean, not a lot of people are getting the newspaper like that anymore. A lot of people are looking at it on their phone. People aren't listening to the radio. People are listening on their phone. People aren't looking at billboards all the time. When they're at their home, they're looking at their phone. So once again, it all goes back to the social media. It all goes back to that aspect of it. But to kind of delve more on, like I said, on more of your process, just in trying to get stuff in Angola, like you said that you're part-time now, right?
Yeah, well, I live in Fort Wayne now. I lived here for 3 years, so I don't.
Okay.
My mom still lives in Angola, so when I go back, sometimes I'll fly my drone around when I'm in town or something. Fly around the mound or fly around the high school. I covered the fireworks last year. I didn't go this year, but those are kind of things I do when I'm there.
Yeah,
Like
I've seen definitely you've done a lot more drone content. I've seen a lot of that on
yeah,
your on the Facebook page and on YouTube and stuff like that. With you being part-time now though with it, because I think your other job is you're a car salesman, right?
yeah, I'm selling cars now.
Selling cars. Oh man, so you're good at you're good at selling to people. You know that's a good skill to have though. I think working at being a car salesman at least once, and I've never been a car salesman, and
Right.
you know I don't really plan on it, but like regardless, you doing that helps out with like selling stuff for Even Tell All Productions, I would assume as
Well,
well.
yeah, it's weird how when I started a channel, I had to make money. I had to go out and have sales calls.
Yeah,
So when you go on sales calls, you have to sell yourself and sell your business.
yeah,
Then I started reading sales books and starting to figure out how to talk to people in a way that's not condescending or making them feel like I'm forcing a decision where they feel like oh, I'm not sure about this, instead of kind of, you're not manipulating them, but you're trying to see the good in their decision that they're making.
that's
So like
true.
if anyone buys a car, like for example, I want to look at 3 other places. You know, I got to have something to say when they say that. So just like, you know, when I was selling my video channel. So I got my ads on Comcast. So sometimes I present Comcast. They could have this ad on Comcast. So I did this ad for Harold Chevrolet years ago. I'm getting away from the mic here. I did this ad for Harold Chevrolet, and then they ran that on an ad on cable all over DeKalb, Allen County, everywhere. But I could sell cable ads too. So anyway.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's great. And it's crazy when you talk about manipulation with the car salesman, because I feel like before I've been manipulated by car salesmen, maybe Grody Automotive specifically.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely they would.
You know, definitely Grody Automotive. You know, which is funny. I actually want to bring up Grody because now I kind of want to talk about the quality of some of the commercials and stuff that have been in Angola in just local spaces, right? Because when I think about local commercials, they all have the same exact kind of look to me. And like Grody is literally probably the most shining example for local commercials in Northeast Indiana. His commercials are so terribly awful. Like they're awful, but like they get a lot of people's attention and people know who the fuck Grody is. And
that's his whole goal. I mean,
that's his whole goal.
Just to be known, and he's a wacky guy. Hey, I'll drag it, pull it in. And he's got his guy in the background, and whatever the theme is every month, like
it's crazy. like the funniest commercial I swear I ever seen from him. It looked like he was trying to be serious about something. Like it was like a documentary style, like interview shot, very nice lighting. Like it looked really different from the high contrast or the low contrast, is overblown, ugly green screen type of mess that you usually see with Grody. It looked really, really good in one shot, and then it went straight to the wackiness again. I thought that was actually really genius because it's like, okay, he's a character. Like he's a character, and he's selling what makes people want to go to Grody, which is hilarious to me because I've gotten a car from Grody once before, and then my mom and dad I think have gotten cars from Grody before. I don't know. I'd have to ask them like, why the hell did you guys get cars from them, but from him? But like his idea is you want to go to this, the place, the lot to try to see and meet him, because like his wackiness, it makes you feel good, it makes you laugh, and that makes you feel good about what he's selling a little bit. His commercials though are awful. I mean, I don't know, you think about them, but I think they're bad, and I think he knows that they're bad too, but it's just something. But like with the quality of local commercials,
like way back, his style is kind of like the 80s or 90s when you had wacky car guys and slashing prices or cutting up the signs and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, just that is true. That is true. There's a bit of nostalgia. I never thought about that. Like there is a really big part of nostalgia because a lot of those old commercials for like restaurants and cars, car lots and all this kind of stuff. That is true. I guess that does kind of bring back to his wackiness in a lot of ways. I mean, even other folks like Bob Rohrman, like that guy, like even his, just like people call these jingles, like it is smart, right? And I think what makes it smart is those people are like they're the face of these car lots and all this kind of stuff.
And he owned like, well, he's passed away now, but he owns, I would say 13 to 15 car lots. So that Bob Rohrman thing, he would do not just here in Fort Wayne, he would do it in Chicago, wherever else he had car lots. So
that's crazy.
And now it's Kelly Chevrolet. They have lots of car lots here. Now,
yeah.
Well, the reason why we're probably talking about car lots, not because I'm a car salesman, but they advertise the most.
Yeah, that is true. Absolutely. They advertise the most. And it's like I feel like when I think of local commercials, I instantly go into thinking about the car commercials for these car lots. And I'm not talking about the ones that'll usually throw in some like, stock footage of certain cars, because a lot of car lots will do that now too.
Sure, they get that from Ford or GM. They just hand it to them.
Yeah, exactly. They'll just hand them some different stock footage.
You're not getting those types of shots where they're running that close to a car.
Yeah. I mean, I just worked on a car commercial recently. I worked on a commercial for Turo. If you've ever heard of that app, it's like Airbnb for car rentals. Like people can
rent I know exactly what that is.
Yeah, I worked with them.
You can rent someone's car for a week. Right?
Yeah. I love it. It's definitely a really good app. I like it. I don't know if I'd ever rent out a car, but I've rented a car before from there, and it's really cool. But just seeing how that was my very first car commercial I've ever been on, like a real professional one. Like we were filming in the streets of San Francisco and at Stinson
cool,
Beach.
Man. Cool.
All these, they had the ultra arm, they have the blacked out Audi or Porsche, and they have the whole camera crane arm on it. It's funny. We actually, the camera crane actually hit a parked car on the road when we were filming. That was kind of funny to see. That was really cool. But with those type of like local commercials, right? When you started Tell All Productions, or when you go about working for clients, does that ever cross your mind to think like, okay, I don't want my video to look anything like Grody? Because when I did for SW Films, one of my main things that I've always said is every vision made with cinematic excellence. That's my slogan. And that means I really want to I want every local commercial to feel like something that'll be on playing during the Super Bowl. Like I want it to have that feel. I want it to be cinematic. Mm-hmm. I want it to have story. I want it to evoke emotion. I really want to affect people's emotions when I'm trying to convey something for a product or a service for these companies or brands. So is that something that's crossed your mind too when you think about, I guess, creating something, or are you kind of more like in a streamlined process where you want to give the client what they want and keep it at that?
It really depends on the client, I guess, because sometimes they want to be in it, and it's sort of your job as a producer sometimes to either talk them into it or talk them out of it if they're not a good public speaker, or if they're not very good on camera. The company I work for now, I need to do their videos. I really should. And I've already asked the owner. It's like, I already work for you. I could do way better than what your guys are doing.
Yeah.
Because the problem is he's got a son with him, and his son is a nice kid, but he doesn't look comfortable. You can tell he looks a little nervous when and it's your job as a producer to relax him. Like, look, just relax. I get him talking before we roll, we're joking around. I just want to get him loose, just so they're, you don't want them to look like this when they're talking. And we have all these great car deals.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Loose,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's part of your job is, as a producer, is to get people loose. And all the people I've interviewed over the years, especially if you're doing commercial work. I've had a client where he wanted to be on, and then I put it together for him, and I had to go up to him. I was like, it just doesn't work. Like, we got to do something else.
Yeah.
And then it might have been, I might have felt nervous saying that, but I felt like it's my job to tell them that too. Like
You got to, yeah.
yeah. So I don't like having them all in the commercial. I'd rather have someone else voice it and have a nice stream, because I don't feel like someone talking, unless they're the face of the company, that they should be in every commercial. Now, Grody does that. I wonder how many takes it takes him to do that. You know,
Probably a lot. Probably a lot. I feel like, because even though Grody's such a very charismatic person, I feel like it's probably not always an easy process. Maybe trying to work with him in getting these lines right and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's that's to be expected. But yeah, I agree with you though. I agree with you. Yeah, I think it's.
If I'm doing the same thing in every commercial, then I really need to do something else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's my issue with a lot of like local commercials that I see. Me doing the stuff, being part of the projects that I've been a part of, like I'm very high on gratitude. I'm very high just on the growth of myself when it comes to this industry. Like, I came in and created my own opportunities in Angola, Indiana, and Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then I've led myself to California, and I've worked on some of the biggest things. Like I've seen the highest level of production when it comes to film. Like I worked on Matrix 4, which I don't know when the hell that comes out, but that comes out hopefully soon. I worked on Shang-Chi, which comes out this weekend, which by the time this podcast is out, most people have already been known this. I've worked on Shang-Chi.
What were you doing in those? How are you involved in those?
So I was a PA on all those shoots.
Okay.
But like I was more of like, so on Shang-Chi, I was kind of like a PA. I was kind of working with the drone team a little bit. I was working with all the camera teams. So like they had me mess with the. Go ahead.
How did they find you? I mean, are you on do you know the right people that get a hold of you now? Or?
Basically how it goes out here, and I would say it always goes with anywhere, is just like, just networking with people. Like, sure. So the reason I moved out to California in the first place, one was to gain just a higher level of my work and a higher opportunities and stuff like that. Cause as much as Indiana was a great place for me, well, I would say great place, but as much as Indiana was like home and I felt very comfortable working there, I still wasn't getting a lot of the stuff that I wanted. It kind of goes back to those struggles. Is like when I work with certain companies, like when I worked with WeHop, for instance, Craig and I shout out to Craig, but I think Craig sometimes he don't want to expend so much money, and even though that was my very first commercial ever that I had directed and shot and edited, I think most of my career I have not been paid what I'm worth. And now that I've been a part of such of these big productions, like I was the second assistant director on this Kendrick Lamar music video in LA recently that just came out. That was the biggest thing in my career because I was an assistant director on that. So I had a really big role in that, and that was also just a crazy thing for me because that's like an idol of mine to work with, him and all that kind of stuff. So that was huge. But being a part of like Matrix, and also worked on Venom 2. I worked on Matrix and Venom 2 in the same month. That was also just crazy. That was like right before the pandemic started. And then
so are you in a union or are you a freelance then?
I'm free. So I'm freelance. Yeah. So I'm freelance. Okay. And then, I have my production company, SW Films. And then I'm also a part of another production company called Black Reels. But I'm not a part of any unions yet. And I don't know if it's going to be a long time before I get into the union. Even to get into a union as an AD, it takes a really long time. So
yeah, I know it does. That's why I was curious.
Super long time. Now I could hop into, they have the unions for like a lot of the construction guys or the show pro guys, like the journeyman. Like if I wanted to jump into like doing G&E stuff, I could probably get into there at a certain amount of time or stuff like that. But I strictly want to stay in the directing realm. So I don't have really an interest in hopping in those other unions. But basically it's just like now, I have a cousin out here who's a filmmaker, and he's very highly respected. He's worked on a lot of big projects and is a very successful person.
That's cool. You got some family there. Good.
Yep. Shout out to Hilton Day. But basically I was working with him a lot. And then after that, I kind of built my own network, and now I haven't really worked with him as much. And now it's just like random people will call you sometimes and be like, hey, we need a PA, or hey, we need.
Oh, gotcha. That's cool.
This. So it just kind of comes up like that. But basically, I guess what I was saying to kind of go to all that is like,
Turn it down. Sorry.
oh, you're good.
Can you give me a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Turn it down. That's all I'm hearing. It's in the
Yeah.
background.
It's all good. But basically, like with all of that, I'm such a stickler on the quality of certain stuff. And I always try to strive to give my best quality, even with projects that I really don't like doing, because I think we all have projects that we've shot before that we just like, I really don't like this. I hate this. It's kind of not, it's not one of my favorites,
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
So
Sometimes you gotta let go as an editor. Just say,
right.
it's like there's nothing more you can do. You can
Yeah.
spend like 3 more hours on stuff, and this looks the same.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like sometimes you gotta let go of just that. You're not married, you can't be married to a project, and I think that's just
Right. Then, and as soon as it's over, then you just let it go.
yeah,
On the next one.
But
Because
yeah,
I never want to look back and think, oh my gosh, I could have got all this or da da da. That's how your head works. If I just would have had this one shot, or if I just would have had this person be in this right position. So
right. It's a lot. And I think, once again, I think that kind of leads into not the last few questions, is just the collaboration. I remember me and you had spoken about one time, and we never actually delved into that conversation at all during that time. But I remember you had asked one time to like team up, I believe, during that time, and we never had an ending conversation to that.
yeah, I remember that.
I kind of forget maybe what my response was, but I think at the time, and even now, still is like now, like when I was in Angola doing a lot of the stuff that I was doing, and I was trying to get more commercial work, and I wanted to work with all these different kinds of people from Angola as far as the businesses goes, and I was working with a few people, but it's like a lot of people sometimes they want to see your worth a lot. People want to see what kind of stuff you've done, and like once again, you have to really twist into someone's brain to make them realize that video marketing and all that stuff is needed. But I've always looked at myself, I guess, as being I guess I wanted to my projects and the work that I wanted to do, I wanted to be much larger than Angola. Yeah. I didn't want to stay in Angola and kind of be stuck to just servicing them, because there wasn't really much to service because of maybe just some of the arrogance of some of the businesses, and also maybe just the individual brands and people. There's not too many musicians or a whole lot of creatives really in Angola like that.
Well, you got those businesses are chains too, so they don't need a market. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because they got Starbucks or McDonald's, they don't need to advertise. So.
Right? Yeah, no, Starbucks. When it comes to those companies that are just franchises, I don't even go. You don't even go to them. Yeah, you got to go to the agencies. Like I've worked with, I did a commercial. Yeah.
Hungry Howie's to do an ad.
Oh, really? You did? Wait, yeah. No, yeah. That's it's crazy. Like you got to go to like agencies. I've worked with like Chipotle. I did a commercial with Chipotle recently, or about probably a month or two ago, and it's funny. Jerry Rice and then this kid named Trey Lance, who's a quarterback for the 49ers, they were both a part of it. Yeah, like those are
Rice. Yeah, but you have Lance too.
Yeah. Trey Lance was super cool to meet. I think he's gonna be a star. And then Jerry Rice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Jerry Rice is literally just like, he is a legend. Being around his energy and his vibe was incredible. He motivates everybody that he's around. Like he's that kind of guy.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think most of the stuff that I wanted to do, I wanted to be further outreaching than Angola. I mean, with you now with Tell All Productions and where you're at now, I mean, do you think that you eventually want to kind of create something outside of, or something, I guess, at a much bigger production rate or something like that? Like you want to basically create something that's bigger than Angola, we'll say, just bigger than the stuff that you've been doing now.
Yeah, I think that's natural. There's like 2 things I'll be doing soon that are going to be difficult to do, but I think I can do it. So,
yeah.
I don't know if you saw the Dallas Cowboys they're doing inside the training camp Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Well, they took a drone to the whole facility. I don't know if you've seen this footage. What's
A drone in the facility?
They you got to see this, man. It is awesome.
Yeah.
They start from the outside and they fly all the way around the practice through the whole facility. It's like 4 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it's like some of the most amazing drone work I've ever seen in my life. They fly it through a Ford truck. They fly it to the outside, and they go inside. They go into the meeting rooms. It's all one shot. There's no cuts at all. It's one shot. Anyway.
They probably have the FPV drones. A lot of people are doing that now. Like there's this guy named Johnny FPV. And I wonder if he did that, because Johnny FPV is one of the best, if not the best drone operator I've ever
It probably
seen.
is him.
Yeah, because he's done some ridiculous stuff. Like
I heard that it took him 15 takes to do it, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
But if you don't get amazed by it, I still get amazed by video still. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm always wondering how they did it. So then you kind of
absolutely.
Could I do that? Well, sure you could. You need a lot of practice, but stuff like that. Anyone could do it.
Absolutely. No, that's true. I mean, that's the, like, I always get, even though I'm such a stickler now, and just like I when I watch a movie or watch certain things, I'm like thinking about how they did it, how they lit it, how they shot it. What was I wonder what the PAs were doing during this shot, like stupid shit like that a lot of people, the normal folks, would never, would care about. But like, I always get amazed when I watch music. Like even when I worked on this Kendrick Lamar music video, like that, still, it was surprised me, all this stuff like that we did, that how it came together. Like it was like, oh shit, like this is kind of wild how this got edited together. This is kind of crazy how just the vibe of it, like, just there's always certain stuff, especially movies, always surprises me. But
sure, the pacing of a scene, like how many times do they edit in one scene? People don't count though. Sometimes I count, like, I wonder how many cuts they're gonna have here. 1, 2, 3,
it's a lot. So with everything, talking about how tough it is for Angola, I guess, what would be your advice to people that may be listening who are probably from Angola, from Steuben County, who are interested in doing video? Because, like I said, there's only been a few of us who come from Angola who do this type of work. So like, there's there's me, there's shout out Austin Van Wagner, has done some stuff like wedding videos. Who else? I wouldn't really throw Chris Sanchez in there, but he does a lot of stuff in Angola, so I would throw him in the mix too.
What was that kid on the lake there? Didn't you interview some kid on the lake?
Oh yeah, it was Grant Cordy.
Cordy, yeah, that's it.
Grant Cordy. I haven't seen anything from him in a while, so I wonder if he's still doing stuff. But I think he is, actually, because I think he actually
seen some of his lake stuff. Like
yeah, no, he actually is still doing stuff, because he did ask to be a part of one of my productions when I was home recently. But there's like a small few amount of people, and I think the toughest thing for everybody in Angola when it comes to staying around the area or trying to do stuff in Angola is people don't know how to break out of those creative barriers. I think it's very, very, very possible to create something that'll really catch the attention of people in Angola to the point to where they're going to look at it, they're going to support. I think everybody, I'm gonna say me and you, right? Me and you have had that. For you, creating One-on-One Lakes Network and really bringing like this type of history to the eyes of people is one of those moments. I think that's so huge, because nobody else could do that besides you. You know what I mean? And I think that's really cool that you have that opportunity to give that to people. You know what I mean? And then when it comes for myself, I think it's just the fact that being from a very, very small town,
right,
being a Black man from a very, very small town, and being able to be at these levels of production,
it's
kind of
awesome.
and work with these types of celebrities and all these different crazy types of people. There's not a lot of people in Angola that can do that. Or can say that, and of course, that's why I always want to get back to my hometown. Like I eventually want to try to bring like a networking event to Angola, because I feel like a lot of creatives in Angola, entrepreneurs, they don't know each other. They don't know each other at all.
You know that guy, God, I can't remember. He's got a place on Clear Lake. You know about him? He was in the yeah. You remember when GoPro came out with Karma? It was their
Rory Kramer. Is that what you're saying?
Kramer. That's it.
Kramer. Yeah, I would throw him in the mix too. And I think I found that
he did. He got the Chainsmokers.
Justin Bieber, Chainsmokers. He had Justin Bieber come out here.
They came to the venue because of him, and Justin Bieber came. Same thing.
Yeah,
their videos. Yeah, no, he's not from here, but but
that's what I was about to say. They said he's from Michigan somewhere, which makes sense since it's close to Clear Lake. But I would throw him in the mix too. I guess he is one of those types of people. But like, it's just like there's only like a small few amount of people that can give that type of product to people. And I think everybody is trying to find their own way. And I think right now, as I build up my brand and as I continue to work on all these different things and everything, like, I think it all is coming together eventually to start making Angola a much more recognizable place. But what would be your advice then for people that want that are in these creative barriers? Like, what would be your advice to help them break out of it?
Well, if they're in any small town, you have to find. Oh my gosh! Hang on. Oh, my son's calling me. I probably got 5 more minutes, bud, and then I got to go. But
that's all good. Yeah, this is the last question.
Okay.
Take 2.
Yeah. So when you're in any small town, you gotta find something unique about that small town, and every small town has
Getting bombarded right now.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad.
Yes.
Don't pick me up yet. Just my friend wants to play for a little bit.
That's fine. I gotta run out real quick after.
Okay.
Before I get you. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Take 3. Last question.
Hey. Yeah, any small town has something unique about it. So just in our area, I mean, I kind of told you a little bit about, there's so much history around the lakes. There's these big lakes, and they all have hotels. They have all this kind of history that it's kind of interesting to find out about. So any small town has a unique feature. So you got history, you got lakes in our area. And I don't know, do you know much about Fox Lake? That history?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
1000%. Yeah.
So that was a vacation spot for African Americans for years.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there are some remnants. There is a small dance hall that's abandoned. It's still there. It's still.
Yep. I know the exact one. Yep.
You know where it is? Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a unique part of our history and of American history. And so every little town has something like that. It doesn't have to be history, but there's a unique feature about that history. Then maybe you got the biggest water slide in the state in your small town. See, you explore that. You know, you gotta find something. And you're out, and maybe you're in the mountains. You have all that beautiful terrain out there. So you got to find your voice, I guess. And it doesn't mean you have to stay there, but you can find something unique about that area and capitalize on it, and you can create something out of it. That's my advice that I would say to someone younger.
To find your voice. Absolutely. And that's 1000%. I think more people in Angola and these small towns, but specifically Angola, because that's where we're from. Like, that is to find the voice is important. Because a lot of the small towns sometimes have small town mentality that comes with it.
Right.
So a lot of people don't want to explore other options and their mind, not having an open mind about certain stuff. It's important to take in the right information and to build your voice around that information as you grow. And at least I would agree.
Yeah, at least try. You at least got to give it a shot.
Yeah.
But I got to create a documentary with no experience at all. I mean, other than being a PA documentary. So you learn so much when you're working. Yeah. When you're doing different things and trying different things. and I could try this next time. And you learn from each experience. So if you don't
Absolutely.
try, then how can you learn?
Well, like I said, Trent, you are a very great example of breaking out of that barrier. Like it's great to hear the story of working at this job. You're in the field, you were doing good enough, started your own thing with 101 Lakes Network, you quit that, and just starting building up ever since then. So that is actually that alone is already the example and advice for us. So keep on going for it. To end off this,
you're still young. I mean, you're doing it. So keep going at it.
1000%, man. Absolutely. To end off the podcast, where can people watch your excellence? Where can people reach out to you? Give me some social medias, and I can link them here so people can find your stuff.
Tell All Productions, TEL, which is my initials. That's how I came up with that. TEL is my initials, dash all, ALL Productions with an S.
Sweet.
And you can search that on YouTube. I got about almost 2,000 subscribers. I've got 5 of my documentaries on here that I've done. And there's probably close to 700 videos, I'm guessing.
A lot of videos, yeah.
There's not so much lately, but there's more coming soon. Because
that's great.
I got an interview coming up with a Afghanistan war veteran.
Oh, wow.
So I just want to get his take on what's going on in Afghanistan, which is all over the news right now, obviously.
Yep. Man, that's great. Awesome. Well, thank you, Trent, for being a part of this podcast.
Yeah, thanks, bud.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to everybody who's listening and watching. Make sure to go subscribe to the Excellent Podcast and subscribe to SW Films. And we will see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.